Hey YouTube, welcome back to Doctor Who Reviews. I'm here to review episode 3 of series 9, titled Under the Lake. Okay, so this episode has some intriguing elements in it. Story-wise, it was okay. It wasn't anything breathtaking, and wasn't anywhere near as interesting as episode 1 and 2. However, this episode does bring up some interesting aspects about the idea of death. But it also raises, for me at least, it raises some questions about some of the ideas about what they were showing in this episode. Okay, so the story basically sees the Doctor and Clara trying to rescue this crew who are down below the seabed. And what I found very interesting about this idea was that normally in Doctor Who, we see space action. We see a lot of Doctor Who episodes cover space or Earth-based stories, and we never actually get to see any stories actually take place in the sea. Because in some senses, the sea, under the sea bed, is actually the final frontier of us, because we've been to space now, but we have never been to the very bottom of the sea. And I found that, and just on that premise alone, that's dark and mysterious. And I think that tone really carries through with the episode. And the idea of ghosts haunting the seabed, haunting seemingly this city, reminds me very much of Bioshock. This episode really felt like how Bioshock feels. And I think in terms of the ghosts, whilst they weren't very interesting, they did have a very interesting idea which Doctor Who hasn't really played upon very much, and that's the concept of death. And we basically see the Doctor basically trying to, trying to come to grips with whether or not these are ghosts. Or are they something else? Now, the idea of death was really touched upon in Torchwood. And what was strange to me is that how much of this story seemed to deviate away from the idea of death that Torchwood presented. Now, I don't know how interconnected Stephen Moffat's version of the Doctor is with stuff like Torchwood. But sort of in Torchwood, the idea of death was that when you die, you basically go into this void of darkness. And death and the idea of an afterlife actually doesn't exist in this universe. And what I found very interesting was that this episode seemingly contradicts that that idea. But what confused me was that if we have, how interconnected is that idea in with this version of Doctor Who? So I found that very, very strange. I like the idea, but I like the idea in theory, but in practice, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted and can really talk about. There's not really a lot that happens in this episode. It's just a bunch of running around and playing upon the idea of death. The one thing I do want to kind of bring up, though, is Clara. The Doctor brings up the idea that maybe Clara is getting a bit too attached to the adventure. And the Doctor kind of says that maybe Clara should find herself a boyfriend, referencing Danny Pink from Series 8. And it's very, very interesting because Clara herself as a character is turning into a character who basically is becoming too attached to this adventurous lifestyle. And both last episode and this episode, it seems to reflect a possible death of this character. So it really should be interesting, given the fact that Jenna Coleman is leaving at the end of this series, whether Clara will actually die at the end of this series. Should be very, very interesting to find that out. Anyway, all I want to say, stay tuned for my Heroes episode 3 review. And yeah, see you all soon. Bye.